the way.
We're wanted men.
I have spoken.
Welcome to episode 1. Oh, Jesus, we're in the 200s now. 201 of the Smugglers Galaxy Podcast, your favorite Star Wars podcast for smugglers in the galaxy. Jason, how are you this morning?
I'm here. How are you?
I'm good. That's how I feel too. It's like I'm here and we're ready to rock and roll, man. I'm still trying to get things together because I ran out of time this morning. Because it's, you have time and you try to get things ready and you're like, I've got 15 minutes to do this, and it takes you 20, and then it just totally messes everything up.
Messes you up, not me.
Yeah, you're good because you're
Just
like,
clarify.
dude, I'm ready. You had to move your computer and everything, man. You are ready to rock and roll. You're good.
Yeah, my wife was doing homework, but I'm not sure how late because I went to bed at normal time, and she's still sleeping. So I was like, I'm just gonna move downstairs. I don't want to wake her. Let her sleep.
Yeah.
She's working hard, and I'm hardly working. So
Those are the best, isn't it?
yeah.
You got to have a sugar mama or something.
I don't know if she's a sugar mama, but she's working hard. So that's
Right.
the
There you go.
important thing.
She's living her dream, which is awesome for her.
Yeah, and it's a dream she didn't even think she could have until we moved down here.
Right.
Seems like moving to Georgia opened up a lot of opportunities for the both of us, and in ways that we never even thought.
Right. Who knew you'd have a podcast and be helping out on a Star Wars club and be doing a big event and
Speaking to people from Galoob too. I mean, that's just the icing on that cake.
it's amazing the doors that it's opened. Yeah, especially when you think about it, because I think you said when we were hanging out on the 4th, you only been here like what, 5 years in Georgia?
Yeah, they moved in the summer and I moved in January. So it was 2019.
Wow.
So it's 5.5 years for me, 6 years for them.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Time flies,
It does.
especially when you're having fun and there's a pandemic in the middle of it.
Yeah, that's true. It's like, I just remember there was a meme floating around at the pandemic time that it was like 2020 was the chosen year because it was like Taco Tuesday.
Yeah,
Or
that's
Cinco de
right.
Mayo is Taco Tuesday. It's like the calendar and I remember looking at 2020 going, man, this year's great because everything's just lining up perfect. I think 4th of July was on like a Tuesday or something. So you had like a long 4th of July, you had a long Christmas, you had a long New Year's. It was just going to be an awesome year. And then in March, it all went to crap.
Yeah. Yeah, it did. Certainly was a challenge.
Yeah.
But then again, talking about the opportunities, it just opened up new doors. And like, I was a fan of David Quinn's podcast, but I became a friend of David Quinn during the pandemic because, we would have these online chats and hanging out and talking to people.
Right.
It's like being indoors opened up more doors. It's weird.
It is. I mean, yeah, because I think we made the best of a bad situation, especially in the Star Wars community, because it was, we as a club, we did like what we called the virtual social because we couldn't get together in person. And that led to this podcast, you and I being on the podcast together, because I saw you do that. And I was like, wow, this guy really knows his stuff. And then they did chats every week, which is continued on 4 years later. And yeah, just a lot of friendships opened up during that time. So we made the best out of a bad situation.
Speaking of friendships opening up over time, Ted from the Force of Course podcast was in Atlanta for work, and he swung by Second Chance, and he came over to my collection and my house. We had dinner, and then we went over to your place, and it was cool to finally meet someone that I've only seen photos and heard voice on the podcatchers for a couple years. It was great to finally meet him. He's taller than I thought he would be.
Right. He was. When he walked in, when I walked, because you met him before I did, and I was in the back talking to David. Can you hear my dog? No, you don't hear my dogs freaking out right now, right? Because Zoom is cutting it out. But
A
anyway,
little bit, but it's fine.
all right.
I'm always
I'm
amazed when I meet someone taller than me because I'm tall to begin with.
right. Yeah,
And
because I walked out the back room and I was like, holy crap, you're tall.
yeah, yeah. It's just it's kind of off-putting because I'm usually the tallest person in any room, and I don't even think about it until someone taller walks in, and I'm like, oh, hi.
Right, exactly. Because I'm like 6'1" and you're a little bit taller than me. So we're both pretty tall. And it is off-putting. Not off-putting, but when you see someone taller, you're like, oh. But no, it was cool because we've been friends with Ted for like 3 years and just have never been able to make it work to where we're in the same place at the same time. We've been in the same place at the same time, but we've never been able to link up because I've been in Cincinnati and we were going to meet up. We had plans, and then like there was a bad hurricane or something, which totally messed things up at his work. And next thing you know, he couldn't meet up because I texted him at like 5 o'clock. He said, message me at 5. And I'm like, hey man, it's 5. How you doing? He goes, I didn't realize how late it was. So his day had blown up. And then he came to Atlanta about a year or so ago, but he was in Stone Mountain and he didn't have a car and we couldn't make it work. But this time I'm going to make it work. I'm going to, we're going to do it. And yeah, he came over, met at Second Chance, and then he came over to your house for dinner, and then he came over to my house to check things out. And it was a good evening hanging out with him.
Unfortunately, Atlanta traffic delayed things, and so the time window grew short, but it's Atlanta traffic for you.
Yeah. Yeah, because he kept saying, I'm delayed. I'm like, welcome to Atlanta, man. But it was funny because every time he'd round the corner, he'd walk in your room and then he'd walk in my room and he's just like, I need a room.
Yeah. Good luck with that, Ted.
Yeah.
Did you pick anything up this week?
I had something special sent to me.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I should have went first, but go ahead.
Oh, no, go first. You go first and then I'll go next. So what did you get? No, you
uh,
want me? All right. Are you guys ready? You ready?
Remember, it's an
ready?
audio podcast.
It's an audio podcast, but we got a YouTube element. I got a Sabine TIE Fighter.
Cue the applause.
Yay. Hold on. Is it going to happen? Do it. It's not my, yay, confetti. So like out of the blue, I had a show last Sunday night. And as I'm driving home at like midnight or 11:30 or whatever, I'm in traffic and you're checking, of course, you're not supposed to drive and text in Georgia, but I do it anyway. And so it's 11, it's late, and I check my Instagram and I get a message and he's like, hey man, did you ever find the TIE Fighter? I'm like, no. He goes, I've got one for you. And I'm like, for free? Because anytime somebody tells me, here, I got this for you, I've had it happen one too many times where you're like, oh, cool, thinking it's free, but it's not, so I always ask just to make sure. And I don't do it, I do it respectfully, and he's like, yeah, I walked into a Ross and there was 2. And I was just like, oh my God, number one, you found one, and number 2, you found 2 of them. And yeah, he was like, dude, I'm a big listener of the podcast and I know you've been looking for this and I want to pay it forward. I was lucky. And I love your podcast. You guys bring so much to the community. So I want to pay it forward. And by Wednesday, it's sitting on my doorstep. So finally got one. And I thank you. It was an exciting time. It definitely makes me realize there's still some good people out there. And when we're having a rough time, sometimes with the community, just know that there's always good people still out there that are willing to watch your back and look for something and you know, when they know something means so much to you, they you know, will go above and beyond for you. And it was an awesome experience. It's awesome. It's sitting on my desk. I can't bear to bring it downstairs yet, just because of what it represents. It represents a lot more to me now that I have it and the situation and the way that I got it. So yeah, thank you. It was awesome. I teared up a little bit when I opened it, and I can't stop when I talk about it. It just brings a smile on my face. So I want you to know, man, that you definitely made my week in the Star Wars universe.
So pay it forward.
Yes, so pay it forward. Yep.
No, you pay it forward, not me.
Yes.
Yes.
I will. I got to find something to pay it forward, but I will.
Find something and give it away on the show.
Okay. I'll
All
find
I
some.
got.
Yeah.
Was that all you got?
Yeah, that's it.
It's tough to follow that.
Yeah, it is. I'm trying to think what else I got. I don't think I really got a whole lot this week. No. I've been looking. I got stuff on pre-order, but I did get the Zeb. The Zeb came in. The TVC Zeb came in, and I mean, it looks just like, it's hard for me to get excited for it because it looks just like the Black Series, only smaller. It looks like they fixed his feet a little bit on this version, but I think that's it.
I did get TVC Axe Woves. I got Mandalorian Fleet Commander, but this one stinks because, and I want to know why this happens. I don't think it's coming up on YouTube or the camera here, but there's like a mark, like a printer mark right here. It's the same shape as the bubble, almost like they attached the bubble here and pulled it off and put it here, but that's not what happened. But it's in the same shape as the bubble, so, and I've seen other people in the community have that issue. I also got the R2D2. This previously came out on the same card back. It's the vintage, Star Wars card back. But R2D2 was completely dirty, and it was supposed to go with the X-Wing. So it came out at the same time as the X-Wing. And so you could put a dirtied R2D2 inside that X-Wing. But people were complaining because he's a clean card back and a dirty R2D2. So they reissued it with a clean R2 and a clean R2 card back.
Dude, people complain about everything, don't they?
Yeah. And then I got the new Leia.
So that's a good looking figure.
It is a good looking figure. I don't think I'm a fan of soft goods.
Right.
But I take that back because like the Imperial Guard, the old Imperial Guard, the Endor Luke and Leia with the tunic, like those work really well. But when you have like a hard plastic top and then a soft goods bottom, I understand for posing that this current Leia has a hard good bottom half, so it's difficult to pose because you're limited, just like the Power of the Force 2 Leia. You're limited with the posing. You can't really move her legs past a certain point because she's kind of locked in that hard skirt. But I don't know. I like this look better. I don't like the soft goods because it doesn't look good with the hard goods top and the soft goods bottom.
Right. And that's like they made a skirt, but it's of a softer plastic so you can move it around. And
yeah. And I've seen people, because there is a slit on the side, but it only goes maybe 1/3 up. And I've seen people cut that slit all the way up to her torso, so it gives more room for her legs to move. But those were the new TVC. I got that Zeb as well. But I also, my wife was at Target this week, and they had the U-Wing on sale.
Uh-huh.
It's 50% off.
Nice.
I have one open, so now I have one boxed.
For 50% off, I'd probably pick that up. I haven't seen it yet. I've seen like the Masters of the Universe has been on 50% off, but Star Wars, I guess it just depends on the Target. I did see the new line of TVC. I've seen those, like the Darth Vader and the Stormtrooper. I'm seeing those in stores. So stuff's coming out, but I haven't seen. I saw the new Bo-Katan, like the metallized the repaint Bo-Katan Micro Galaxy Squadron, but I haven't seen anything else. And I checked it on the price checker, and it didn't ring up.
Is it listed as Bo-Katan? Because I thought it was, I think it's part of their Armada series, which means it's just a generic Mando.
But it is listed as Bo-Katan, I believe.
Oh,
But why? I mean, it might have been. I thought it said Bo-Katan, or maybe because sometimes I just assume stuff, so I didn't read what it said. But
it's
I'm
it's
also go ahead.
it's kind of frustrating because there's the lack of communication from Jazzwares, and so they're launching this Armada edition, which to me sounds like it's like an army builder, so you can buy multiple ships without having to buy multiple Bo-Katans. Like they're all just generic Mandalorians.
Uh-huh.
But if it's all Bo-Katan, that's pretty frustrating.
Let me look. I mean, I know I've seen people on the Micro Galaxy page post some, so I can check that real quick and see. I know the Hera X-Wings starting to make appearances. It's just, I know people are tired of us griping about this line because, like I said, as much as I love it, I hate it at the same time because it's annoying. But like the Hera X-Wing, I'm seeing that. Let me see.
The Kenner X-Wing is out.
Kenner, yeah, the new Kenner X-Wing. Is this? Yeah,
Land
it says
Speeder.
Armada Edition Bo-Katan Gauntlet.
Huh. Interesting.
And there's the Fang Fighter and the Phantom. I know I have the Phantom pre-ordered on Amazon.
So the president of, or the CEO of Jazzwares tweeted out that he's going to be revealing the San Diego Comic-Con exclusives, which I roll my eyes because last year it was a cluster.
Yeah.
People were forging tickets, and I mean, we've gone over that whole thing. But I heard another podcast calling the exclusive San Diego Comic-Con exclusives eBay exclusives, because that's really what it turns into. It's
That's
like
awesome.
genius.
I'm sorry. That is beautiful.
It's essentially what it is. People just go buy it so they can flip it on eBay.
Right.
It's not really for the fans.
No, it's not.
But and that's not just Jazzwares. This is not a dig at Jazzwares. It's pretty much any San Diego Comic-Con exclusive becomes an eBay exclusive.
Yeah, I was because Beeline, the people that do Geeky Tiki, they are doing because they do shot glasses. They're doing a shot glass set of Ahsoka, and it just said that it was being previewed or being released at San Diego Comic-Con. I was like, thank the maker that it's not a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive because they did a good job with the figures because it doesn't look, it looks like it could go either way, either in the cartoon or the live action show. So I was pretty excited. It's like right in between the two of them. So they did an awesome job with the sculpt. And then they released a chopper, like a big tiki mug. And I'm like, and it looks great. I mean, it's not like the normal tiki mug. It looks like they spent some time with the sculpt on it. It's a little bit different sculpt. So I'm pretty excited for those to come out. But thankfully they're not San Diego. They're just being released at San Diego Comic-Con. But yeah, dude, I totally feel you with because even at Star Wars Celebration, those things are a cluster to get. Because you got to do a lottery and they never work out for the best.
Well, the past couple ones, Hasbro's been doing QR codes where you can order it online and it comes at a later date. So they don't have to worry about boxes of things and selling things at the convention. They can just display, which is a cool idea. And I mean, the other thing Hasbro's been doing is overproducing them so that, yeah, it's a San Diego Comic-Con, but there's still, I don't know, maybe 10,000 available online that people are able to get no problem, to the point where I think the Chrysanthemum, the TVC Chrysanthemum went on clearance because they had so many.
Yeah.
And that was a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive.
It's definitely, yeah, I've seen that a lot. I've seen it with Funko where the Funko's been pretty good about that because they'll really, unless it's because they did like a blue chrome set, but for the most, you have like a version you can get at San Diego Comic-Con or whatever Comic-Con, and then you get the same one from somebody else. It just has a different sticker. But yeah, it is. I feel you.
Speaking of Micro Galaxy Squadron a few minutes ago,
Yes.
according to microgalaxy.net, they have some sort of, they called it a spy in the West Coast. I'm not sure exactly what they mean, if that's a Jazzware spy or someone in the production of that line, but they did say that they are still planning 2 years ahead. So there are multiple series in the development stages for Micro Galaxy Squadron. That Series 7 will include one from the prequel trilogy. The hint was Revenge of the Sith. One from the sequel trilogy. The hint was The Force Awakens. And then one from a TV series, and the hint was Head Tales. So I would assume that's
Oh,
Ahsoka
yeah,
or Hera.
yeah. I would say more Ahsoka.
But we knew that ship was coming because they teased that out, her ship from Ahsoka.
Oh yeah.
But people were asking online earlier this week. I mean, we still don't have the TIE Dagger. I think it's called the TIE Dagger. Kylo's ship from
Oh.
The Last Jedi that was announced. There's several that have been announced. Biggs. I don't think Biggs has been released yet.
Oh, that's a repaint. Why hadn't they done that?
It's coming. It's on its way. But those are the rumored items that are going to be coming from Micro Galaxy Squadron soon. Trying to figure out which one's from Revenge of the Sith, because we've already got the Vulture droid, we've already got Obi-Wan and Anakin's Jedi starfighters. I would imagine it would be a small vehicle like that. So, I mean, I don't think a Naboo starfighter, star cruiser would sell that well.
The big one or a little
Yeah.
one?
Either one. I think the one from Revenge of the Sith is a little bit slimmer.
Mhm.
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I know the man. I bet if they could, but that's a huge ship. If they could do it right, would it be like in the same vein as like a scale as like the Millennium Falcon?
Hmm. I would think so, but thinner.
Okay, because that ship has some cult following in that line because it was a hard ship to get, and maybe people would, if they can do it vac metalized, that would look badass.
Oh, the other thing, they teased this on our podcast, right? The Max did this. It was Count Dooku's ship.
Hmm.
The sailor one, the one that
Right.
has the big thing that sail that comes out.
Right. That'd be interesting.
But wasn't that teased on our show?
It's been so long ago, I don't remember. He
He
might have.
teased he teased the Darth Vader Sith speeder.
Right. I
Just
haven't found that. That one looks
no.
awesome. I love anything that's all black that's murdered out like that ship is. And I'd love to get a hold of that one, but haven't seen it yet.
It sounds like there's movement on Sean Levy's Star Wars movie. Jonathan Tropper has been hired to write the script. He's written several projects, including the Adam Project, which Sean Levy directed. That's the Ryan Reynolds movie on Netflix where he's from the future or something like that, or he's himself from the future.
Hmm.
Sean Levy is rumored to be directing the next Avengers movie, which should start shooting this spring. So I would think if the script looks good and everyone's happy, and it's probably going to be like a 2027, 2028 start on that movie. So we'll see. Hopefully
Yeah.
it's something original trilogy, something like Rogue One.
Maybe they'll do more High Republic stuff.
During a recent Tamora Morrison, geez, I'm reading ahead. During a recent convention, Tamora Morrison was talking about the Book of Boba Fett,
Yeah.
and he said that both he and her, and he's referring to Ming-Na Wen, wanted to work pretty hard in hopes that they might carry on and do a season 2, season 3, a 4, 5, a 6, and 7. He's been trying to nudge them in that direction, but it needs more nudging. So it
Yeah.
sounds like Lucasfilm is not very interested in a Book of Boba Fett season 2 at this time.
I could see why, because I think they dropped the ball on that. They didn't. I think it wasn't done right. A lot of people were upset about it, and the only good episodes. I mean, they were all decent, but the only like really good episodes that really resonated with people were the one that The Mandalorian was on.
Yeah, and he was complaining that the Mandalorian hijacked the Book of Boba Fett, but I think Boba Fett's appearance in The Mandalorian was stellar. So
Yeah,
maybe we need a season of The Mandalorian starring Boba Fett, and a season of Boba Fett starring The Mandalorian, and everybody will be happy.
right. Because I mean, when you look back at it, when Boba Fett made it, when we thought it was Boba Fett in the Mandalorian, everybody lost their minds. We were like, Boba Fett's back. I mean, I had a hard time driving to work after seeing that episode because he was just so hyped up. It almost ruined my day at work, but in a good way, because you're just like the possibilities, you're losing your mind over the possibilities. And then we get the Book of Boba Fett out of it. I really wanted, we got a little bit of what happened after the Sarlacc pit, but I really wanted, like, go back 20 years, Boba Fett.
Yeah.
And I would love to see him do that, but I think they really,
Not going to happen.
Huh?
Not going to happen.
I know, but when they said that Tamora Morrison was going to play him, and they showed him so many times without his helmet on and blah blah blah, you paint yourself into a corner when you do stuff like that.
It just seems like Lucasfilm is very interested in moving forward and not dwelling on the past.
Unless it's High Republic.
But that is still moving forward because that's new territory for them.
Okay. And you know what? I'm okay with that. Just give me some good content. And I know a lot of people are, my Star Wars, but like we always talk, man,
Yeah.
if you don't bring new people into Star Wars, we're going to be just like these model train collectors.
Yeah. Right. Dead on arrival.
Exactly.
But I do want to get into the accolade at the end of this episode before we close out, because there's this one small thing in episode 7 that I didn't understand.
Okay.
And it's really just character motivations that I'm struggling with. It seems like people are doing things just because the plot demands it and not because the character made a choice.
Okay. Yeah, I got some thoughts. Yeah, we can definitely talk
So we
Acolyte.
can do a quick 5-minute at the end there. But the final piece of news is just maybe a brief discussion, because we had mentioned we were at Second Chance with Ted. I was talking to Kelly, and he's saying that the 90s stuff is starting to be the area of collecting that's starting to pick up, that it's starting to move, it's starting to become more valuable. Remains to be seen if the Power of the Force 2 stuff will be included in that, but 90s seems to be, because we're 30 years out from 90s, and there's that 30-year rule.
Right.
So it's will Power of the Force 2 start to be worth stuff? Will Episode 1 stuff start to be worth money? It seems like it was all overproduced, so it's going to be interesting in the next 5 years to see how that kind of stuff is received.
Right.
Because you're starting to see that with like the Foo Fighters.
Right.
Foo Fighters are starting to pick up in popularity.
Well, it is. It's like, because now that our kids are starting to have, or the kids that grew up, because my kids are in their 30s or late 20s, early 30s. They're starting to have disposable income, and they grew up with the Phantom Menace and the prequels. So that's their Star Wars. So now that they have disposable income, they're starting to collect that stuff a little bit. So I think that's what's happening. I don't know if the Power of the Force 2 stuff could rise in popularity, but I mean, you're going to get what, $10 or $15 a figure? Because now you're getting like 5 or 10. Maybe you'll get $20 a figure. It'd be interesting. I just think that stuff was so. It's like anything that says collectible on it, people collect it because they say it's going to be collectible, and it's like, just because it says it's collectible doesn't mean it's going to be collectible.
Well, maybe some of the more rare stuff from Power of the Force 2 might start picking up. I mean, I've seen it at shows. I think it was graded though. The long tray short saber Luke selling for $100.
Okay. But you
Which is
also have to know what you're looking at that point.
Yeah.
I think.
You do. I mean, I have a couple of those. I don't think I have the Vader or Luke. I'm sorry for saying this, Farm Boy Luke. I have Dagobah Luke with the short saber long tray.
He'll always be Farm Boy Luke to me.
Yeah. But so we'll see how that happens. What I've put together for this episode is just some talking points.
Okay.
The Cantina Haslab has funded it. It went higher than the 13,000 that I thought it was going to hit. It went to 14,000. So Nabru Leeds was unlocked. Ariel Schutz or Sheets. I think it's Sheets actually. Never got funded. He was at the 17,000 mark.
That was the Wolfman.
That was the Wolfman. He was actually a Bat Wolf. I was looking at it because there is a Wolfman that Rick Baker used. It was a mask that he had produced for just as a Wolfman, like selling a Wolfman mask.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the mask that was replaced in the special editions by some other character because George didn't like that it was just a wolf. So Rick Baker did use a wolf man mask, but then he cut out a second mask and put red lights in it, put like bat ears on it, and changed it up a little bit. And that's the character that remains in the movie. But it was the same mask, he just modified it.
Okay.
But yeah, so we didn't get that. The Razor Crest Haslab was 28,000. The Ghost was 21,000, and now the Cantina is 14 plus. I think it's somewhere between 14 and 15,000. It's underneath 15, definitely.
Yeah, it looked like it barely crossed the 14,000 mark when I looked.
14.2, but
yeah, that number sounds familiar. Sounds right to me.
I'm going on memory here. So
why didn't you write it down, Jason?
The first question, yeah, I know the YouTube comments there. I didn't do my due diligence. I'm sorry. The first question is play sets versus vehicles. So is the decrease here on the fact that it's a play set, not a vehicle? If it was a vehicle, would it be higher? Like if it was the Marauder from the Bad Batch, would we be hitting that 20, 21,000, 22,000? Or is it because it's a play set? Like, and when you look at the sail barge, it's a mix between a play set and a ship, but it was also the first Haslab, so not many people knew about it, and people saw the value in that, so maybe they started speculating and backing the Haslab. You know, I guess my question is playset versus vehicle. Do you think that has any stipulation into where a Haslab lands?
I think it does. You're on to something. I haven't even thought about that question. I thought more on the production side of things, but yeah, I think it could, and it's the fact that I don't know, maybe yes. I'm trying to come up with an answer as to why. But I mean, you prove it. You know, the Rancor. I'm thinking, you know, Rancor is that more? That's a figure more than a vehicle or playset, and that failed. But I think that was just bad timing. I think so. I think because and also it plays into the fact that a playset takes up a lot more space than a vehicle does. A vehicle, at least they seem to put stands with them. I know the Ghost, I don't think the Ghost has a stand. But the couple, like the N1 Starfighter from Mandalorian and then the Razor Crest both have stands, so their footprint shrinks when you put it on the stand.
Mm-hmm.
So you have more shelf space with it.
Right.
I think that plays into it. So yeah, I in a roundabout way, yes, I do think, and I don't think. I
think that's why Hasbro kept pounding the modular aspect of this cantina, is because they knew that if you had this full cantina built, it's going to be a space issue.
Right. Well, they did the same thing with the Ghost. How the Ghost is modular, or it's not really modular, but you can take one of the wings off and put it on a shelf, and it'll fit on a shelf with, you know, half of it'll fit on a shelf. Yeah, no, I agree. And I think the more I looked at it from I took my eyes off. I got away from the, oh, holy crap, it's the cantina, and just started looking at the play set. If you don't put that thing, there's a lot going on in that bar.
Yeah.
And if you don't put that together right, it's not going to look right. So I think that plays with it a little bit too. How much are you going to have to put? Because it's going to be a lot to put together. And the walls.
Will be.
Go
unless
ahead.
It's pre-made, unless it's pre-assembled.
Well, how are they going to ship that? I mean, I guess they could ship it pre-assembled. And I also thought that because you had mentioned that it just looked vacuum formed and cheap. And when the bar itself looked great, but
it looks unfinished.
Unfinished, okay. The bar did, or the
bar. what you're saying, what you're going down. I was just sorry I interrupted, but
No,
to
I
me
think
it's
I'm
just
jumping
unfinished
ahead
with
too.
the
So say it's sorry.
no, you're no, that's I think that's there's a couple more points that I wanted to go into, but the bar does feel unfinished because it does look like you have to assemble the walls and you put the alcoves together, but then
Mhm.
you can see there's no cover on top of the alcoves. You see the curve. There's no flat top. So it
Oh,
kind
okay.
of does feel unfinished in that respect. Like if you're looking straight on, it looks perfect, but if you're looking top down,
Mhm.
it's pretty unfinished.
Right. Yeah, because I've also compared it to like my Galactic Heroes Cantina, and it's not a comparison because the Galactic Heroes Cantina is a custom piece. It just I don't want to say the quality and buildership looks like the guy, a handmade piece versus a mass produced piece. There's always going to be a big difference there.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I just don't think I think a lot of people looked at the Haslab and at $400, $500, the quality just the value wasn't there. Because I think even Kelly was like at $300, I'd have been in all in. At
Yeah.
$400 or $500, it's no way.
It's interesting you bring up value because that's another thing that I was going to talk about because there's two things that I wanted to talk about with value. Number one was the leak. The leak said that it would have electronics, that it would have 8 figures included in the base set, and we didn't get that. So when people saw what was being offered to them, I think there's a segment of the population that probably felt let down because, well, I thought there was going to be electronics. I thought, maybe, and it didn't go into detail what the electronics were, whether that was lights around the room. Because if you look at, when they were taking photos, they were showing how they used tea lights to light up some of the tables and some of the wall lights. It would have been cool if there was a button for electronics, like in the Millennium Falcon, that you start hearing the Cantina band play. So, I mean, what are your thoughts as to that leak? Did the leak? It's the same thing with the Rancor leak. It seems to have just torpedoed the potential of the project.
Yeah, I think they did. It's like Hasbro can't get out of their own way. I think the Ghost was done pretty. I don't remember the Razor Crest because I wasn't paying attention to it, but I know the Ghost. I was ready for it, and it was they were very tight-lipped. But I think Hasbro can't get out of their own way as far as leaking stuff because they did it with the Rancor and now they did it with the Cantina. Because you can't do stuff. There's too many people. There's too many eyes watching for it, and yeah, I think with the Cantina, number one, everybody was ready for it to come out May 3rd, May 4th, was ready for the announcement, and then they pushed it back a month.
Yeah.
So that bit them in the butt. Um, I think they shrunk the window too by 15, 20 days, didn't they?
Yeah, it was like 30 or just under 30 instead of like 45, which is the normal HasLab window.
So I
But
think
really, like, what difference is it going to make? The
I, I
15 days.
I think because you had said because when I realized that it was ending July 8th, I was like, man, you guys lost. You have like 4 days where people are in vacation mode at the end of
Mm,
your HasLab. Because from July 4th through July 7th, people, even July 8th, still on vacation mode. You're not going to, unless I know we all have our phones in our hands and we're all, we're always thinking about them or whatever. But how many people were like, oh, I'm going to back it. And then they go out of town and they come back and went, damn it. I
yeah.
mean, it might not have been a lot, but it could have been a couple of thousand.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, and if they would have gone 45 days, they could have maybe reached their 17,000. I just don't know. I think I hate to say it was overpriced, but I think it was a little overpriced.
Hmm.
But you also like $400-500. That's what a HasLab cost when you look at the scheme of things.
Just
At
because
least
it's
this,
HasLab doesn't mean it should be costing that because
no,
when I look at like some of the other TVC playsets that have been released, if you look at the 10 of 4 playset or the Endor bunker, to me in my mind, like those are the same size and probably the same amount of plastic used in the alcoves.
right?
So if the alcoves are $60, and then you've got your entrance, which is another $60. That's $120.
Mhm.
And then maybe the bar itself is a little bit more plastic. So if you're at 120, maybe that's $200
Right?
for the set itself. At retail, I think the base set would be $200, but then if you start adding the figures, so if we'll just round up to $20 because they're exclusives.
Right.
So you're looking at a $260 comparative. And I'm sure there's more engineering that goes into like the bar and stuff. So maybe $300 max. But for $400, it seems like a money grab. It seems excessive. And $300 probably is pushing the limit as to what the perceived value should be.
Do you think, I mean, I
It's
know they
almo-
got to pay Lucasfilm 20% or something ridiculous. Do you think that's why? I mean, are they just trying to cover all their bases?
I think it's probably corporate greed because if you go to the nature of a Kickstarter,
Mhm.
who should be using Kickstarter? Should it be some guy in the kitchen who's putting together resin models and trying to get the cash to develop his own action figure line? Or should it be for $1 billion corporation and this is just like a risk adverse tactic so they don't have to produce all these different cantinas and then lose out at retail?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, if we want to talk Kickstarter and talk money, I've got a good, because one of my favorite bands that I've listened to for 30 years, they're getting Galactic Cowboys. They're doing a Kickstarter to record their next album. And they're wanting like $30 for the physical CD. And then like $50. I think I pledged like 200 on it because you get an LP, you get a CD, you get a t-shirt, you get, and to me that's a lot of money, but I'm helping my guys out. I want this album to be produced and it doesn't really matter what I'm getting for it, but you're right. Kickstarter, you're going to pay a little bit. There's a premium on a Kickstarter because not only do they have to produce the items they're giving you, they have to put the money towards the thing, to produce the album. So they can't give you $200 worth of stuff that is going to cost stuff that they're going to cost $200 to produce because they need the money on the back end too, to produce the, to do the big picture thing. So yes, I do, hold on. So yes, Kickstarter, if it's like something like that, I don't mind paying a little bit more, but Hasbro is a big company. If they're like, hey, let's see if let's float this idea out there before we spend the money to produce it to see if it's going to work, which I think that's where Haslab should be, is like, we're going to do this one, like the Cantina. It shouldn't be, I'm going to charge you $200 more for something because it's a Kickstarter.
Yeah.
I'll charge you, maybe I could see them charging a premium. Don't take it the wrong, maybe like $50, like a $50 premium because it's a Kickstarter, not a $200 like they are with the Cantina. I think if it had, but then again, like with the Ghost, if they put lights in the Ghost, that would have been, I think when we were at $500 for the Ghost,
Right.
that would have added another $50 to $100 on top of it. But also the Cantina, you could have that's easy to run lights in versus a ship
Right.
because it's all flat.
And to me, it's just, I guess the thing that I'm struggling with is just the corporate greed. Because I was talking to a friend on Monday night and we were discussing the tiers. And I guess I'm just completely turned off by the Haslab idea and this whole Kickstarter for multi-billion-dollar companies because so the first tier goes from 8,000 to 11,000 and that's what, a $3,000 difference.
Mm-hmm.
So like you have
$3,000 or 3,000?
3,000 people or 3,000 orders.
Right.
And at $400 each, that's like $1.2 million. And it doesn't cost $1.2 million to make an action figure. Like the tiers are designed to get people to invest more so the company can make more.
Right.
It's not about providing people a value. It's about extending this thing so we can get more money.
Yeah,
And
that was, go ahead.
and I think like as an example of the corporate greed, like with the Razor Crest, they should have added more tiers. It got to the point where it's just like, thanks, guys, keep giving us the money. Thanks, we appreciate it. And I'm just turned off by the corporate greed, and it just feels like a cash grab on behalf of or on Hasbro's part.
Yeah. I had brought up, because I'd made some talking points too, and one of my talking points was the tiers. and I'd need to go. I tried going back to the sail barge, and you can't find what the tiers were. I didn't do a ton of research, but I kind of went to Hasbro Pulse and looked, and I couldn't find it. And now I'm thinking, well, maybe I could have done some more research and found it somewhere on the interwebs, and I didn't. But it felt like with like the sail barge, it was, it felt the tiers were adding value versus adding figures. Because like with you could have started off with, like, let's say the bar itself. And then I do agree that if you're going to add a figure, it should have been like 2,000, not 3,000, or, the tiers were it felt like, what was it? Cause it was like 8, 14, 8, 11, 14 or something, or 8, 11, 14. So it felt like every 3,000 or so. That to me is a far jump, just to get a figure. Like you were saying, they should have brought it up closer, like maybe every 2,000. And then when you do hit the final tier, then they start adding stuff. Cause it does feel like when you're watching when I've watched other Haslabs, when I've paid attention to them, when you do reach that final tier, they start adding more stuff in. Mm-hmm. It may be little, but it's, here you go. With the Razor Crest, just remembering the Razor Crest, because that was like the first Haslab that I paid attention to. And even when you watch the Ghostbusters, like the Razor Crest, the first tier was an escape pod.
Yeah.
And then the next tier was...
That was never used.
Right. Well, the story behind that is they designed the Razor Crest in it, and Dave Filoni said, "What's that?" And it's an escape pod. And he goes, "Oh, leave it in there. We may use it."
Okay.
And they never used
it.
Blew up. Huh?
The ship blew up.
Right. That's the story behind the escape pod. It was designed in there. Whoever designed the Razor Crest put it in the Razor Crest, and Dave Filoni said, "Leave it in there. I may use it." So then you've got like the stand, and then you get a figure, and then you get something else, and you get like the weapons pack. Or it felt like with the Razor Crest, they were building up the Razor Crest versus just adding figures to it. I mean, we did get, you got the Grogu and you got the Jawa, which the Jawa was, okay, whatever. I didn't even open my Jawa. Mm-hmm. I ended up selling it because I was like, I don't have any use for this. They were adding value versus adding figures. And I think with the Cantina, I don't know how, I mean, I know making figures is expensive, but I think they should have just thrown in some uncarded figures with it, or thrown something else. It felt like with the Cantina, they made a big stink that, it has 100 cups in it and blah, and it's got all this, and it's like, people don't care about that stuff.
Well, Steve Evans went on and said, with this Haslab, the Tanaka sisters and Wooher would only be available in the Cantina. It won't be available outside. It was the tiers that if they get unlocked, there's a potential that they could be used for future figures. They would just have a different card back. So the card back was exclusive to the Cantina. But I also feel like that wasn't communicated properly. So when you're talking about perceived value, like you were just saying with the Jawa, you're like, I don't have any need for this Jawa. Plus, they've already released that Jawa without the special necklace. And so the exclusive part of that Jawa was the necklace, and I think maybe the egg that came with it, or something. Maybe it wasn't the egg. I think the egg came with another one. But there was just like 2 pieces in that figure that was exclusive. And I guess when you step back and you think about it, is there value in that for me to back this Haslab for a figure that I'll be able to get? It just doesn't come with the necklace. I think they need more powerful exclusivity with their Haslabs.
You're nailing it. And I think the people that wanted, you're right. Because if I look at that and I'm like, I can either back it or buy it from somebody who bought it for the figures, or vice versa. Yeah, you're right. Why would I back something if I'm like halfway on the fence and I know that these figures are going to be released in 2 years? What's the point? They exclude, because like the yak face that came with the sail barge, it had an extra cup and a coin.
Right.
And you can find that yak face at Ross for $5 right now.
Right. So what I did is I put together And with all that in mind, I put together 5 reasons why the TVC Haslabs are possibly on decline. Maybe it's just as simple as, well, it's a playset, not a vehicle.
Right.
But maybe there's more going on. So I put together 5 reasons, and we'll see what your thinks are.
Because I got some
Your
thoughts
thoughts.
too. So let's do this.
Number 5, politics have divided the fans, and we're not going to get political, but
Right.
it's just a fact that although politics have been embedded in Star Wars and since day one, it seems that either people are starting to realize it or they're just getting mad about it. Mark Hamill is pretty vocal about his politics, and Elon Musk on the other side is mad that Disney's pulling advertising on X, so he's making Disney and Star Wars an easy target. And with like the Gina Carano, like he's helping her sue Star Wars. It's just there's a very strong political divide in Star Wars, which I think is pulling at the franchise and the uh, uh the strength, the solid stature of the what am I trying to say? It's been a strong franchise, and I think this is starting to weaken it.
Right. Well, I think that's, I mean, I know we don't want to talk politics, but I think that's America as a whole right now.
Star Wars is no longer number 4. Star Wars is no longer the gold franchise, the gold standard of franchises. It's got a quality issue. I think not all series are made with the same passion and talent.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you can hold Andor in the same breath as Acolyte, even though I'm enjoying the Acolyte. The quality of Andor is just the amount of storytelling and the depth of Andor is just so much stronger than the Acolyte. Marvel has eclipsed Star Wars in terms of the younger generation. It's no secret that Star Wars' fan base skews older. And with that in mind, there's a generational gap. So the older generation, the one with the money currently, uh, doesn't want to invest their money into Star Wars, and the younger generation doesn't really have the discretionary funds, and they're not able to buy stuff for Star Wars or invest into Star Wars. So I would expect like the old school would rather see like the Tales of Cantina show more than the Acolyte.
Right.
So there's that. Number 3, hold on, I'm moving my page up here. Number 3, people have left the hobby, in my estimation. High-end vintage items are not selling. People either want cheaper vintage toys or they seem to collect another line altogether. It's cheaper to buy Black Series at a toy show than it is to buy at retail because there's just so many of them. And once you buy them and you have them, the value of those have decreased. Target doesn't carry TVC anymore, and if they do, it's minimal numbers. I see people pushing back on the idea that Target doesn't carry TVC, but I'm not seeing it anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see new stuff showing up. I see the photos of new TVC at Walmart, but I'm not seeing it at Target. So when you have a major retailer like that, either cutting back on what they're carrying or not carrying it at all, that says that, it's not worth Target holding that stuff on their store shelves because people aren't buying it. And then the last point in the people have left hobby thought is that the third-party vendors like Entertainment Earth keep canceling TVC orders. I suspect that these are probably for like second run of figures, second issues. But it seems like Hasbro might be cutting back on that kind of stuff to avoid the Ollie's dump.
Yeah.
So they're just canceling the orders. Number 2, my thoughts are that people have been burned by reselling Haslabs. 28,000 for 8 Razor Crest. I mean, you could throw a rock at a toy show and hit a Razor Crest, and people are still asking $400, and it's just sitting there. And I would suspect that these are probably like a $200 vehicle at toy shows that people are just not like at a $250 price point. These items would move, but obviously people have spent, what was it, $350, and they don't want to lose money, so they just sit there.
Right. Yeah, the Razor Crest, I think with shipping was like $400.
And I think people saw the value of the sail barge rise to the roof. I mean, that's a $2,000 piece right now.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, oh, we're just going to invest. But when you have so many people investing and they overproduce these items, it's not worth that. When you don't have 28,000 people in the hobby, you're not going to get money for that item. I mean, for there to be a profit in a 28,000 produced item like the Razor Crest, you need 50, 60. You need more people in the hobby than there is the item.
Right.
And I feel like there's more items in the hobby than there are people, if that makes sense. And then the last point is to why possibly TVC Haslabs are on decline. Again, it could be just as simple as this is a playset, not a vehicle. But I think the prices of action figures are too dang high. It's been rumored that the cost to make a TVC figure is the same as the Black Series,
Right.
but the Black Series figure is just so much more expensive just because they can. It's bigger.
Right.
So those are my 5 reasons why I think something funny is going on, but I could be completely wrong, and that's okay.
Yeah, no, I think you're right with people leaving the hobby. I think people are because with the Razor Crest, I've got my thoughts were more with the I'm sorry, I meant to say the sail barge. Were more with like the sail barge versus the rest of the releases with the as far as Haslabs go. No, I think yeah, the hobby is failing, and it's scary. I think people are, like you said, politics are getting involved, and people are getting mad, and people are mad at the acolyte. It's just right now it's a very politically charged time in America, and it's falling into our hobbies, which it sucks that's going on. Um, and yeah, I think people when they see that when they saw that the sail barge was going for $2,000, or you could legitimately buy 2 sail barges and sell one and pay for both of them. People I think we're thinking the same thing on the Razor Crest. And no, you don't think so?
No, no, I'm agreeing. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that's exactly why, and that's not the case.
Right. And I think I paid like $500 for my Razor Crest, which you're paying $400. And so the guy only made, and he went from $700 to $500 in like 2 minutes. And because I
Mhm.
was like, yeah, at 500, I'd probably be a player. And I walked away. And next thing you know, he's calling me over going, I'll do 5 on it. I'm like, okay, I'll pay $100 extra just to get this ship. And what was the other Haslab? Oh, we hadn't even got the Ghost yet.
No, we're still waiting on the Ghost, which a part of me is like, it's fine, it's no big deal. But another part of me is like, why haven't you delivered on the last Haslab and now you're asking for more money? Which goes to that corporate. Maybe that's why I feel like I've turned the corner on the corporate greed thing,
Mhm.
because it's like you haven't delivered the last Haslab and now you're expecting more money for another Haslab. It's like deliver and do your part before you ask more from me.
Right. Um,
I know that's not a realistic point of view, but
Well,
there's a
no, it is. I think it's very realistic, because not only because they're doing Transformers Haslab, they're doing GI Joe Haslab, they're doing Star Wars Haslab. They've got 3 branches that they're doing Haslabs on, 3 toy franchises that they're doing Haslabs on, and all of them have things that they're waiting for to be delivered, and that's playing into it. I've seen people quote. He's like, I've one guy quoted on Facebook, I've got $2,000 in Haslabs waiting to be delivered. Why would I want to give you more money?
right.
Well, and it is a total thing. I mean, and part of me is, I mean, it's in the back of my mind, and I wanted to back I wasn't planning on back of the cantina, but you are like, I've got, I'm still waiting on the Ghost, which will be out sometime in October, hopefully. And you want to, it's hard to invest another $500 unless it was something I really, really wanted. Um, and it, there again, we're going back to the cantina. Like you said, I think your 3D printed cantina is going to look better than this cantina, but it's a handmade item. It's different.
Yeah.
You took the time and painted it and put lights in it and stuff. I did appreciate, going back to the lights real quick, I did appreciate the fact that they made the little tables, the little round tables, big enough to put a pin light in, or a tea
Mhm.
light in to light it up. They were smart. It seems like they're making the moves to engineer stuff the right way, but why don't you take it the next step? Or maybe they could go like, we designed it to put, go to IKEA, get these certain lights, it'll fit in there. And we designed it to do this with. Maybe they need to do something like that. Anyway, go back on my thoughts. I think with the going way back to the sail barge, when you got the sail barge, how many, you were getting a book, you got a nice book with the sail barge, like at 6 months in. I don't know when,
Mhm.
but there was always, they were updating you with the sail barge. You got the book, they were getting emails going, hey, this is what's going on. I've got nothing
Yeah.
from the Ghost.
Let's just go back to the corporate greed, I guess.
Do
Do less and get more money.
Right. Yeah. So no updates, no books, no communication, too many in production. I think the fact that the no floor in the cantina threw people off. It got me. But they could have also done something to where maybe they gave you 2 different floors or something. I don't know. I think there was a way around the floor, but they just decided not to. They're like, it's easier. We
Yeah.
just won't throw in a floor.
That one doesn't really bother me, I guess.
Well, you're looking at it from a different. You're looking at it from, it's the cantina, and I'm like, oh, it's another Haslab. So we're looking at it, I think, from a different set of eyes.
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah. And then the tiers, I think, have been lacking on this stuff. Yeah, as far as there's no, like you said, the tiers, they're too far apart, and it's for a $20 figure. Where maybe they should have done something, like with the Rancor, they were like, oh, look, it's foam rocks, or it's garbage, or it wasn't, the tiers they're not as good as they used to be. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I like I said, I can't go back to the sail barge and say what tiers, but I think they like threw, let's say, I'm pulling this out my head, but I think maybe they threw the Jabba in there at a tier.
I don't think so. I think he was included. I
You
think
think he
Yak
was
Face
included?
was the only tier.
Really?
I think so. Because it was all like, it was like evolving. Like, here's the Haslab. And they were like, okay, well, it's struggling. So we need to add a tier. And so they added a tier. Or maybe
Oh,
they added Yak Face. And it was the second Haslab that included the tiers. I think they added they added the Yak Face in the middle to try and entice people to finish and cross the finish line.
gotcha.
I
But
think.
let's just, I'm trying to come up with another, because like when they did the Ghostbusters one, because they did Ghostbusters, right? They did the Ghostbusters. So yeah, there's a 4th franchise that they're doing Haslabs on. But when they did the Ghostbusters, the backpack,
Don't
you've
forget
got
Cookie Monster.
no Cookie Monster. So 5, and Cookie Monster failed.
Yeah.
But like when they did the backpack, the for Ghostbusters, you got slime on one tier, you got special stickers on another tier. It's stuff that added to the playability of that backpack, where I don't think necessarily adding the figure really adds to the playability that much.
Now that I think about it, I wonder if the failure of the Cookie Monster had a lot to do with the future evolution of HasLab than we realized. Like, that was a brand new franchise for them. That was out of the box. That was completely different. And when that failed, maybe they were just like, dude, we just need to stick with the Transformers and the Star Warses and the sure things and not take risks
Mhm.
with something completely off the wall like a posable Cookie Monster.
Right. I mean, what was that cookie? What were they trying to sell that Cookie Monster for?
I don't remember, but he had like wires in him so he could be posable. And I don't, it's probably even completely wiped from the internet.
Mm.
Let me do a quick search, but Cookie Monster has lab. This is engaging content.
I know when I looked at the Haslabs, they still kept their fails up. So like the Rancor was still up.
38 inches tall. Uh, $300 for 3,000 backers.
I remember 3,000. So yeah, 3,000 backers. Wow.
Let's see if it's still up on Hasbro Pulse. Nope, it's not there anymore. I
Or
go
could
to
you
a
look at
401
yeah,
page. Oops, sorry. The page you're looking for cannot be found. And I went from a Hasbro uh
press release?
press release, and
Interesting.
Google's not bringing anything up.
Hmm.
So he's been stripped from the web. But I wonder if that failure has something to do with like taking it from out of the box and keeping it in the box and selling
Mhm.
it as, hey, we're thinking outside the box.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, it sucks when you see like the GI Joe stuff and it feels, I mean, I know it's their own brand, their own franchise, so they don't have to pay extra for it. But the GI Joe stuff is so much they knocked the GI Joe stuff out the park, and it feels like the tiers are better. But there again, I'd have to go look. I didn't YouTube. I didn't do my research good enough. So, but like the hiss was lit up. You got 3 or 4 different figures. You got things to add on to the. Okay, so so the hiss. I know like one tier was like fire was rockets. Another tier was something else. It was all stuff to add to your hiss to make it better versus having a plain hiss. And it doesn't feel like they did that. Maybe if they would have done something like that with the cantina, it would have backed better.
Maybe. We'll never know.
Right. I mean, maybe at one tier, they could have been like, here's a floor. It's cardboard, but here you go.
Well, after the cardboard floor of the Rancor, I think they wanted to stay away from that.
Yeah.
But I mean, it would have been cool if they did some sort of early bird back within the first 24 hours. You get XYZ.
They should have.
Trying to entice people to get the higher curve on the front end of a Haslab because it spikes at the beginning, it dips in the middle, and then it spikes at the end. As obvious as because, as we recorded last week, I didn't even think it was going to hit Greedo, and we exceeded Greedo, and we got to second tier. And so it just really shot up at the end. I don't know if it shot up as much as it could have, because possibly the July 4th holiday had something to do with affecting that curve. Because when you look at the curve, it does level out just a little bit, and then it continues the ascent up. So it's quite possible we could have got to the 17,000 if it wasn't for July 4th landing in the back end of that curve.
Yeah. I think they did themselves a disfavor ending it the Monday after July 4th.
I feel like we've talked about that enough. So let's talk Acolyte just for a few minutes. So if you haven't seen episode 7 of the Acolyte, thank you for listening to Smugglers Galaxy Podcast. Blah 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 blah. So here we go into spoiler territory, and this is your last chance to turn it off. So the thing I didn't understand is, Master Soul's trying to preserve the peace. He feels like he's got to take Osha under his wing, despite what the Jedi Council is telling him, or at least what Trinity's telling him,
Right.
or Ndara. But Mother Anasea starts like turning into this smoke. And for whatever reason, Soul just pulls out his lightsaber and stabs her. And I don't understand why he did that, because it seems like an offensive move. A cold-hearted murder. It didn't seem defensive. And I was like, this dude's trying to preserve the peace, and then all of a sudden, he's like trying to tell people, calm down, calm down, calm down.
Right.
And he just pulls out his lightsaber and he just kills this woman.
Yeah, I don't understand that. I think, hold on, Barry's sending me, hey, I found something. Anyway, yeah, no, I didn't understand that, but I think they were trying to portray the tension of the moment and how tense everything was at that moment when he did that, because there was just a tension with them going into the witch's lair, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
And it definitely, and you could tell when he did it, he was like, oh crap. But yes, because you don't know what she was doing. And with them already seeing, them take over the one Jedi, you were like, oh, they're going to go and take over somebody else.
Yeah.
So I can understand why he did it, but you could tell his remorse as soon as he did it. And it did, I don't know, that whole episode to me, like when something like that was just so anticlimactic that it just didn't make sense. It was a
Yeah.
letdown.
It didn't make sense. And I'm just struggling with like the motivation of characters on the show in general. Like
Mm.
May is wishy-washy and Soul, like I wish there was more consequence. Like Soul s- I wish I saw the force pulling him and itching him like you need to take this Osha as your Padawan because it just seemed like, dude, let it go.
Right. It seemed like he was being more a creepy old man, like
Yeah.
than a Jedi. Like, hey, little girl, I got a popsicle. Um, yeah, it
Come
really
into my
felt.
Jedi van.
Yeah, no, you're right. It didn't feel. It just felt so forced, and I don't understand what happened or why he was feeling that way. Um, I'm still enjoying the show, but I don't know. I'm really hoping this next episode I hate to say have faith, but I've seen it too many times where they wrap stuff up in 5 minutes.
And then when the Wookiee was swinging his lightsaber and being controlled by the witches,
Mm-hmm.
they played Kylo's theme again.
Did they?
Yes.
Huh.
I
There's
wonder
something. I wonder.
I wonder if the strangers somehow been affected by the witches. I don't know.
There is a theory that it might not be the stranger, but they were thinking that maybe May is being affected by the witch because when the mom disappeared, where did she go? The second mom disappeared. Where did she go? So the people are thinking that maybe she is possessed May,
Yeah. There's a
and that's
lot.
why, huh?
There's a lot to be wrapped up.
There is a lot to be wrapped up. You got to figure out how the stranger knows Master Saul. You've got to figure out why the Green Lady is hiding something. But I've
And
also
these
seen it, huh?
and these episodes have been a half hour, and it's like there's a lot in a half hour.
Right.
Maybe too much. You
And
can't
this, go ahead.
and I don't think you should always rely on a second season to explain things.
No, you shouldn't. Um, this last episode kind of led me to be like, oh, I see what everybody's talking about. Because like you see all the witches at the second or third episode dead, and you're like, okay, what happened to all these witches? And then all you see is Trinity take back over the Wookiee, and they all pass out.
When they all died, I thought she severed some sort of brain connection and they all died.
Right. That's all it took to kill them all.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe there's a reason that maybe they need to. Maybe when you do have that brain connection or taking somebody over, if they die, you die. Sort of like
She
throwing
cut
back
the
to the
thread.
Matrix. Yeah.
She cut the thread and they all died.
Yeah, that must be what happened, but it was just so unceremonial. It was just like, oh, they all died.
And I say congratulations if you understood what was going on, but I don't think that a show should be that mysterious where you have to think and consider and think and consider to figure out what's happening. I think it should be pretty self-explanatory. And for Soul to just murder someone is just not self-explanatory.
Right. I
But
I just think he didn't know what was going on, and he thought that she was going to attack him, and he defended himself, and that then she was like, I was going to let May go or Osha go. And I've also heard that,
that could just be manipulation, though.
yeah, well, she was going to let Osha go, but the other witches were kind of, it also concerned the other witches were fighting her about it. And it also concerns me that like the one that looks like Darth Maul or the same, she
Yeah.
was telling, huh?
The Night Sister.
The Night Sister, one that looks like a Night. She's not really a Night Sister because did the Night Sisters have the horns like that?
Oh, no, they don't. You're right. But
Um,
Darth Maul's female cousin.
right. She looks like she's a Darth Maul cousin or whatever. She was telling May to go crazy. Release it, go for it.
Yeah.
So she was getting ready to battle, and everybody, I think the other mother was like, "Oh, let's try to keep the peace." And you could tell that the coven was split because it looked like you had two different factions following each lady.
Yeah. I don't
Um,
know.
It's a lot to wrap up in 1/2 hour episode. I hope it's a little longer. I'm very disappointed that people don't that it I just wish Star Wars could do better. I mean, I'm enjoying it, don't get me wrong, but I think you could release Oscar winning performances and Oscar winning acting and directing and special effects, and I think people would still be mad at it.
Yeah, I don't want to go down this road too much further, I guess, but it is telling, like, maybe it's a unique talent to make these Flash Gordon serial like shows. Because I don't even think George Lucas could do it until Marsha Lucas came in and edited it.
Right.
And she made it so that it was spectacular. And so maybe it's not that easy to do. Maybe all this Star Wars inspired by Star Wars is not Star Wars. I don't know. And I know some of this was inspired by some of the old stuff that inspired Star Wars, but I don't know. Maybe it's not as successful as I thought. We'll see. There's one episode left and I'm reserving final judgment, but I really struggled with Saul just straight up murdering someone this episode.
Yeah. I think they're doing a good job of showing that the Jedi are not as infallible as we thought they were.
Yeah. I did like how Saul,
No, go for it.
immediately put down the saber, and as the Darth Maul female lady started to attack him, he didn't use his saber. He was just being defensive, which is what I think a Jedi should be doing. They should not be taking any offensive moves. They should be only the defensive thing. They shouldn't be killing anything because they understand that it's all part of the Force.
Mhm.
You're essentially killing the living Force.
Right. I have enjoyed because you never see a Jedi lose his cool, and you saw Saul lose his cool at one time when he punched the control board. This is several episodes ago. You've never seen that before.
Yeah.
So they're definitely showing a different side of the Jedi. I want to know where it's going. And they did throw like a High Republic because they were like a hyperspace thing happened, and I'm like, oh shoot, that's straight out of High Republic, because that's where the High Republic books start. There was a hyperspace incident.
Mm.
And it's like, oh, that's right. I mean, it was just quick. It was a throwaway line, but having read the books, it was sort of like, oh, there it is. So, I mean, it stinks because I really want to enjoy this show. I mean, I'm enjoying it, but I want everybody else to enjoy it too. And they're throwing us some decent bones. It's not as right in front of your face as the other stuff has been. There's some fan service, but it's very well hidden, and you've got to be a pretty deep fan to get it, but you can enjoy it on the back end. But I don't know. I want more Star Wars content, and I'm afraid that this not being well received is going to affect that.
Remains to be seen.
Yeah.
But speaking of fan service, I'd just like to say to our fans, thank you for listening to the Smugglers Galaxy Podcast. If you could, please leave a like and a 5-star review of the show. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, if allowed, it really helps us out and points people to our show. You can follow us on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Send us an email or message us. We love feedback. We love to make you part of the show. Our email address is smugglersgalaxy@gmail.com. Thank you to Alfonso Riviera for the Smugglers Galaxy logo. And thank you to Levi Waterhouse for the music. People, collect for the love of it. Hashtag vote with your wallet. Sabine will be on next week. Pass on what you've learned. Be a positive force in the collecting community. This is the way.
This is the way.